Welcome to University Television Presents. I'm your host, Joey Oles. Today we have Mary Ann Arnold and Janet Worthington. They are the visionaries of the future Foote Park at Lucky Peak Reservoir. This park is very special because of some of the faculty of the communication department has helped in some aspects of this project, but I will let them explain that. How are you ladies doing today?
Excellent.
Very good.
Good.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit how you came upon this research? How did you come up with the idea of the Foote Park Project?
Well, this all started with a hat. Because I, at one point, went into a thrift shop and bought a hat that was a little riding hat that you would wear with a woman would wear with a riding helmet. So I always wanted to have a whole riding habit because I do portrayals of famous women in history. So when we moved here to Boise, and I had my riding habit, I was looking for somebody who might have worn this kind of a hat and this kind of a riding habit. And I found Mary Halleck Foote. There was an illustration that she had drawn. It looked exactly like that picture, that I had pictured. So I was very excited about this, and I started to do research on her. And the more I researched her, the more I found what a magnificent person she was, how much she had contributed. She was the Dean of Women Illustrators at one time. Wow. She had done illustrations for people like Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, John Greenleaf Whittier, Nathaniel Hawthorne, all names of people who are classic American authors. And so I felt that maybe I should portray her. So that's when I began. I got some other costumes for her, and I began going to organizations and talking as though I were Mary Halleck Foote and explaining how I came to Boise and what I did while I was here in Boise. And that's how I got started with working in Mary Halleck Foote. And then Mary Ann and I,
however,
went out.
I do not wear costumes. So I'm the engineer side of this duo. And Janet had mentioned that there was a Foote Park. Now, I was aware of Arthur DeWint Foote because of his involvement in engineering. So, and I didn't know there was a park here in the valley. So I have a little sports car that we like to zoom around in.
Snazzy.
Yeah. And so off we went, and up by the dam, you go out Highway 21, and instead of going on to Idaho City, you make a hard right-hand turn, go across the dam, back down towards the river, and lo and behold, there is Foote Park, where their home, when they lived here, was located, which most people don't know. Correct, Janet?
That's right. Many times we've asked people, and they don't know where Foote Park is or who the Foote family is.
Right. So that was on a hot August day in August of 2013, and Janet and I are standing there looking at this rain-soaked, bug-infused sign of the Footes. Right. Arthur and Mary, and we in unison turned to each other and said, somebody's got to do something about this. And indeed, we made that decision. And so I'm calculating in my mind, okay, size of the sign, about $5,000. Let's find out who has this property. So that led us to the Army Corps of Engineers. Yes.
Sounds like you guys really needed each other in this. Like there's no one without the other so far.
She's English. I'm rulers, so I'm not the reigning type.
Right,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It's been a great partnership.
Very complimentary,
well,
very much so.
That's fantastic.
So we did meet with the Corps of Engineers later that fall, and you know how the camel sticks his nose in the tent? Well, we walked in saying we wanted to spend $5,000 and refurbish the sign. 2 hours later, we walk out and they say, let's have a whole interpretive center. Was not our plan. I turned to Janet and said, now we're up at $50,000 and counting.
Right.
Wow.
So it just like that, turned on a dime.
That's cool. I like how it just kind of comes together.
It came
comes
together,
nothing,
right.
but
And
like
it
it
was,
really is coming to something cool.
Right.
It did.
Fantastic.
It was the case that when we talked to the Army Corps of Engineers and we said, you know, this is really deplorable that these people were so important here in this valley and that their house is decayed and the sign is not maintained? And they said, yes, it is. What would you like to do about that?
Well, I think it's fantastic.
So we jumped up on it.
I didn't really even know a lot about that until you guys came to me. And so just knowing that you guys are doing something fantastic like this, bringing something that is so important to our valley, bringing that to light, I just find that fascinating. And it's important work.
Yes.
Well,
very good. Very
Thank
good.
you, thank you. So what were the steps to really get this project started?
Well, we started off, of course, meeting with the Corps and working with them and following some really good advice. We wanted to have engagement from all of the professional people that would be interested in a project like this and people from the community.
Right.
So we had an engineer that I'd known from Morrison Knudsen, an architect that was in Janet's Rotary Club, and then Janet, we had some other players too.
Right. We had a lady from the library who'd been doing a lot of research on this. The archaeologist from the State Department, because that was very important. Someone who was very knowledgeable about signage and how to build and place signage and what to use. So we had all this expertise from different areas that came together, which was really important when you're getting started with something like this.
We looked at all the components of the project, and of course me from the construction and build side, and then Janet from the need for research, and then finally to bring it to fruition with the interpretive panels and other things that might be at the site. So we wanted to cover all the angles.
That's cool. I think it's interesting that you guys found different people of different expertises to come together and create something. So.
And it's really, really, I think, admirable that in our community there are all these people who are willing to do this totally free of charge. No fees or anything. They are doing this. Particularly our architect who has worked tirelessly to do drawings for us, and all gratis, which is really wonderful. I think that speaks of Boise. That we have a good.
I think that is very Boise. People just kind of coming together
and help.
Yes, they just want to help. I think helping is great. You don't have to get paid for it, exactly. So, what components were really needed to get this established?
Well, the basics. And again, we were just going to do this dinky little sign. But when we determined it would be an interpretive center, now we're not talking something grand here. We're talking, may I say, basically a picnic shelter.
An open air facility.
That's correct. So we're talking a concrete slab, 4 support posts, and a roof. However, it will be embellished somewhat because, as you recall, we mentioned the house is located in the area. So when you're at the site, you can see the rubble of what was the foundation. They did an archaeological dig in it was about 1888.
No.
I'm now back with the Footes.
Right.
It was in 1988 they did a dig there, and then they determined to preserve what was left of the lava rock foundation to cover it with dirt. So you don't see the house, which was actually a pretty amazing structure. But we will have on 3 sides now, not just 2, but 3.
Thank you.
3 sides of this concrete pad, we will have a low lava rock wall. And when you look at pictures of the house, you will see they had a veranda, and on the sides of the veranda, they did have the lava rock low walls, and we will have those there. So, so that was a major component, was the actual structure. I look at that as, the cake, and then we got to put the frosting on that cake.
And then we have to have ways to get information to our visitors, and so we looked at a variety of ways. Our person who was a sign expert was very helpful in giving us ideas about the types of materials that we could make signs from, and helping us find a graphic designer who would put this all together. So these glorious 8-foot-long panels came into being. And throughout all of this, you must know always that each of us has chosen a person. So I am obviously Mary because she's the writer and the artist of the group, and Marianne is obviously Arthur because he is the engineer. And so everything that we did, we wanted to give equal time to them. So it was not unheard of to hear something like this: don't forget Mary and don't forget Arthur, and make sure that one panel is Mary, one panel is Arthur. here. Also, we decided to do some audio posts. So one audio post is Mary and one audio post is Arthur. We have made sure that in every case we have both of these people represented.
Yes, and when we would go out and speak to organizations, I would be honor bound if I was going solo that I did talk about Mary. So we did have a pact. And you can tell through this whole project, which is now 4.5
years old. Yes.
We just had a great time, and it's been incredibly successful. And as I love to say, not too bad for a couple of old broads.
That's fantastic. So why did you guys think it was so important to have both an audio post and big giant signs?
The interpretive panels. You know, it's been amazing and not surprising as we would go to the community. People don't know about the Footes. They don't know about the contribution. And of course in Arthur's, I mean, we wouldn't have the community we have today if it wasn't for the canal system.
Yeah.
That system was his vision as early as 1884. And if you go to the Idaho room in the Boise Public Library, his original engineering reports are there, one from 1884 and the other one from 1887, where you can see all of his design and all of his thoughts. And so, as we look at his plan, it was so huge. Actually, his original plan is twice the canal system we have today. But he had envisioned Arrow Rock Dam. He had envisioned Lake Lowell. This was all part of the canal system. So his impact is very obvious. Mary's now was because of her culture and her
I think
influence.
She actually was a person with very strong skills in two areas. She started out and she attended school in New York City and was trained to be an illustrator. So she could draw the most incredible illustrations. So we needed something that was visual, very highly visual, to present that aspect of her life, to show the kinds of illustrations she had. And then what happened when she came here to the West, her friends in the East said to her, you know, you're living out in the West. People in the US really want to know what the West is like. So she began to draw pictures from the West. Now, sometimes she had a problem, because people in the East had a vision of the West that was wrong, and they thought it was the old cowboy shoot 'em up sort of thing. I remember one instance where she got a request from a publisher to draw a picture of a posse. They said, we need a posse, and she, I've never seen a posse. I have no idea. But she was very good with horses, so she could draw something like that. So that part was great. She also was a writer and wrote 12 novels. So to hear her words, as you will hear them, many of the pieces on our audio posts are taken directly from her writings or directly from the writings with a little bit of explanation. It makes it so clear why she was such a strong force for showing the female aspect of the founding and the settling of the West. Yes. She's been credited with bringing the woman's perspective to the West, where Bret Hart and Remington were showing the rough and tumble cowboy pictures consistently. She showed the mother with the child, and she showed the women and the kinds of things that women were doing to help to settle this area and make it civilized.
We like to refer to them as an early on power couple because yes. Arthur, oh my gosh, he was so brilliant, but he wasn't necessarily the best at business. And so when that beautiful stone house was built in the canyon there, while Arthur's trying to get things going with the canal, it was Mary's money that actually paid for it. So see how modern they were?
What happened was she had written a novel and they chose to serialize it. So she got a check for $1,500 and that paid for the materials they had to buy for the house.
No. Little known fact.
I did not even know that. Can we talk a little bit about your execution, maybe? Like, also, there's a point that I went to the site actually, and I saw that you have this metal frame, this metal window frame. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I thought that was one of the cooler parts about this.
It is an absolutely lovely thing because this is reminiscent of a drawing that she did, and we have a plaque that we have had made similar to the ones you saw for Mary and Arthur. And in that plaque, there's a picture of a woman looking through the window. And as she looks through the window, she sees the notch as the mountains come together. So this frame has been built to look like that window with no glass in it, of course, but just the poles. And as you look through that window, you see the very same view that is pictured in the illustration. So it's a wonderful way to bring the visitor into that illustration, into that picture, and have them understand what she was seeing, actually go back in time and be in her footsteps.
So that's going to give me the opportunity, when we're actually citing the location of the structure, is I've got to make sure that when we pour that pad, that it's on the right angle, so when we get that window up there, you'll get exactly the same view that she put in her illustration, looking out a window from the stone house. Cool, huh?
Very
Yeah,
cool.
very
cool.
cool.
I thought that was
Yeah.
just a fantastic part. Yeah. So what did you do to build awareness? Like, you tell me that I didn't even know about the Footes, to be honest. It's sad. It's sad. They're lovely. They sound like lovely people. If I
Well,
wanted to meet
when
them,
you
but-
think of it, I mean, this was August of 2013.
When we started.
And when we started, and so did the feasibility study. Yes, can we do this? First, we had to become a nonprofit.
A 501c3 is required.
What does that mean? Can you
That
say a little
means
bit?
that means that if people give money to us, that they can deduct that
Declare it
as
as a
a
donation.
charitable donation from their taxes.
that's
and
very
people
important. Yeah.
people are very reluctant to give to an organization if they don't
can't.
have that 501c3 status.
And I happen to be associated with the Foundation for Idaho History, who is doing the Historical Museum as we speak. But they took us under their wing as our mentor, and so we were able to establish the 501c3. We established a challenge agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in order to do the project. And then Janet and I are both grant writers from other organizations. And so we laid out an entire plan of all of the steps we need to take, all of the grant writing, how much money, detailed budget. And as we were doing all of this over the last 4 years, we went and spoke to lots of organizations. So that got things going on the awareness. And then we had that windfall when we worked on the Discovery Park sign.
Right. There was a whole series of signs along the Greenbelt that commemorated particular events in history in this area. And the Footes had a sign along the Greenbelt. So the commissioners decided they wanted to upgrade all these signs, and lo and behold, they gave us the Foote sign and said, "Here, what would you like to do with this?" And we said, "We'd like to do something different.
And we designed it.
We would like to redesign this." So we redesigned that, and they reprinted that sign. And then when we went to look at where it was positioned, we said, this isn't going to help us much because it's back along the Greenbelt in Discovery Park. So we moved that, asked them, would you move the sign for us? And they moved it for us very kindly over to a position. So if you look at the sign and then you look up, you will see our interpretive center once it's built.
Was it hard to get them to move that? Was it hard to convince
Actually,
them to get them
It
to move
wasn't.
Oh.
We can be persuasive.
Yes.
I know that may be a shock, but we can be persuasive. And so that's when we got then the first article in the paper.
Newspaper.
And then, of course, we were fortunate enough to get a second article. And every time we got one of those articles, that would raise the awareness. And, you know, people who are friends of friends would be contacting us. And as Janet would love to say, oh, and the checks are coming in.
The mail. It was such a wonderful feeling that.
And so that whole promotion.
That was really,
right,
really huge.
Right.
To have our picture on the front page of the Statesman lesson and have a story about what we were trying to do was a big push in the beginning of this, to get people interested, to get them to ask us to come and talk about it, to really send checks. I loved opening the mailbox, and there were
and
checks.
then on the grant side, again, a lot of generosity, and one in particular, and you will note that it's going to be called the Morrison-Knudsen Interpretive Center, and Morrison-Knudsen was founded in 1912 as a byproduct of Foote's design. When the Corps of Engineers finally built in the early 1900s the canal system, then people came west because of that work, and two fellows that came out here, Morrison and Knudsen, founded MK, which was a long time important company in this area, but closed its doors in 2000. So, but the center is going to be named after them, which was, like I said,
That is cool.
correlated to Arthur. So we're going to keep on promoting, right, Janet?
Absolutely. And another thing we were able to do, which was really very exciting, was we were able to join with the Boise Public Library, and we offered in June of 16,
the 100th
we offered
anniversary.
for the 100th anniversary of Mary Halleck Foote Day, which was held here in Boise. And at that time, 100 years ago, they serialized her novel, The Chosen Valley, in the newspaper, because it's a novel, but it's written about this area, and it's written about irrigation, and the principal character is an irrigation engineer, so that was in the newspaper. So we decided we were going to have a Mary Halleck Foote Day at the library, and Kevin Boo, the director of the Boise Public Library, is a wonderful person for taking ideas too, because he said, great, let's do this, let's have all these things going on. So we had a whole day. We had people who came in dress of the period 100 years ago, and we talked about her life and showed some of the clothes that she might have worn. We had people who are scholars. And there's a big conflict that's kind of been around for some
Don't
time.
go there, Janet.
I have to. I have to go there
Oh,
because Wallace Stegner wrote a novel called Angle of Repose that was one of the all reads here in Boise several years ago. And that novel has within it some 1/3 of the novel came from Mary Halleck Foote's writing. He had access to her letters and to her manuscript of her book, The Victorian Gentlewoman in the Far West. So there's been a constant kind of thing like, should he have taken her words and put them into his book and won a Pulitzer Prize for that?
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
that was very interesting, and some of the scholars who came talked about that issue. So we had a crowd of people at the library flowing out the door of the rooms.
It
yes,
was very successful.
It was
and we were fortunate because, well, we had gone off to Stanford and Berkeley to do a research trip, and had the opportunity to meet with, for a day and a half, with
her
Anne Gerlhart Gardner, who is her great-granddaughter.
Oh, that's
And
very
she
cool,
has,
It was cool.
yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
She has in her living room stacks of boxes
Yes, she
of
does.
all sorts of memorabilia. And for this particular Mary Halleck Foote Day, she did send us a box full of some of these personal items that Mary Halleck Foote had made or had used that we had on display in the library. And then in addition to this, we had Sands Hall, who is a known playwright who has done a play called Fair Use. And Fair Use is about the Stegner and Mary Halleck Foote controversy. In fact, there is a scene in the play where Stegner's at his typewriter, Mary Halleck Foote is writing, and they're talking the words that they're writing, and they're exactly the same words.
Exactly.
You can tell this really gets my co-chair rather spun up.
But it was a wonderful, it is a
important.
wonderful play.
Yeah,
And Sands
it
Hall
is.
came here to direct it. She's the author, and she came in and had local people who directed it. and we had it in the Danny Peterson here on Boise
campus?
campus, yes. And we were wondering if people, like we were concerned, people don't know about this, they don't know who it was. And that night when I walked out to welcome the people, the whole theater was full. And I was just in ecstasy. Look at all these people who have shown up to see this play.
She's excited about the attendance. I'm worried about the fire code because we were maximizing the occupancy of that room. So you see, we do
We
complement.
do it. We
Compliment
work
each other.
together
That's
very
fantastic.
well.
That's
Yes,
best.
it worked very well.
All
But
right.
that did a lot too to
Yeah.
promote
Yeah.
awareness of all of this.
So can we go one by one? I just want to let you know, like, what does this project really mean to you? You're 4 years into this. You've been promoting this. You're getting people to know about the Footes, making this big interpretive project. I think it's big to me. I think it's fantastic. So what does it really mean to you?
You know, Janet and I have talked about that on many occasions, and I guess the one thing, and I'm not a native Idahoan, but I've lived here for a very long time, met my Boisean husband in college, and in this area, people can really make a difference. And again, Janet and I electing to do this on our own at a grassroots level, and you can make things happen. People can really make a difference if they're willing to commit the time, contact resources, be collaborative, and pull it all together. I think that's just amazing.
Yeah, I
that
agree.
that the atmosphere here is such that that can still happen. I don't know in the larger population centers. I think it would be more of a challenge than it is right here
probably
in
true.
good old Boise, Idaho. So yeah.
Yeah. What was so amazing to me were the people who came forward who had a connection to this. People who came forward and said, I'm related to the Foote family. I want to help you. I want to donate some money, or I want to do this for you. Or people who had done something in the past related to this. It was just constant. There was somebody always who seemed to have some connection to this. And also for me, I want to see women being given their due, and so that's why this is such an important piece for me in terms of Mary Halleck Foote and the ladies that I portray, that they have done so much and received so little credit. So I'm really pleased that we're able to do this and show some of her beautiful work that she did as an artist, and hear some of the wonderful words that she wrote.
It's fantastic.
Plus, we've just had fun.
Yes, that's been the biggest thing.
I am
Yes,
so happy you
it
guys
is.
have fun. I'm so proud of you guys for doing all of this, for just getting really in there and doing all the research and really promoting this. I want to thank you guys for being on this show, giving us this information. I think it's going to be valuable to us in the community and everyone who's listening.
We hope everyone will come out and have a look when we get this finished.
Yes,
okay?
I hope so. I truly, truly hope so.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
No problem. That's going to be it from all of us here. I am Joey Oles, and we'll see you next time.